Should schools have the right to dictate the way a student's hair looks? Some people would say no, as long as their hair is clean and lice-free. But 4-year-old Jabez Oates had ticked all the hair hygiene boxes, and yet his Texas preschool did the unimaginable and banned him from going to school. And when his mother found out, she made the school regret their decision. 4-year-old Jabez Oates had never gotten a haircut in his life, and of course his mom, Jessica Oates, was just fine with that. But the rest of society didn't quite see it from her point of view. In fact, many folks deemed his long hair inappropriate. His mom would never have considered cutting his hair. As far as she was concerned, it was part of her son's self-identity. But something sinister was about to happen that threatened to rip that identity away from him. Oates and his mom lived in Mont Belvieu, Texas, and although he was very young, he was energetic, smart, and very eager to learn. So, imagine his disappointment when he was told he couldn't go to school. Oates was too young to start kindergarten, but fortunately, Barbers Hill Kindergarten Center had a preschool. So, when his mom told him he'd soon be attending classes, he was elated. Sadly, the excitement quickly wore off. Most kids get taken to a salon to get their hair cut before their first day of school. That way, they can make a great first impression. But Oates' mom didn't feel it was necessary. After all, she didn't feel that hair should define a person. But her decision led to serious repercussions for her son. When his mom enrolled him in preschool in 2017, it was one of the happiest days of the little boy's young life. But his mother had no idea what she had signed her son up for or what the teachers would do to him once he started school. Oates loved his first day of preschool. He got to meet new kids, make new friends, as well as learn and play. The second day was no different either, but something happened on the third day that rocked his world in a very bad way. When the single working mom brought her little boy to school on the third day, the administrators downright refused to let him in. What had her son done that got him banned from school this early in the year? Some 4-year-old kids can be a pain to handle, but she knew her little boy didn't have any behavioral issues. He was a pleasant and curious kid who loved playing with his classmates. So why did the school turn their back on him? The boy's mom was beside herself trying to figure out what her son could have possibly done to deserve being exiled from a public preschool. Had he hit another student? Did he disrespect a teacher? The truth eventually came out, and just like she suspected, her kid wasn't the problem at all. The school told her that her son was no longer allowed in school because of the length of his long brown locks. They also used the word inappropriate to describe his hairstyle. But why was the length of her son's hair so offensive to them? According to the school's policy, boys can't wear hair that grows below the eyebrows, the ears, or touches the collar. In the middle of all this turmoil, the school offered her a glimmer of hope. But would she take their advice? The administrators told her that she could file an exemption on the grounds of cultural or religious reasons for having long hair. But a day later, they told her that no exceptions would be made for little Oates. The hardworking mom was on her own. She had a job, so she needed her son to go to preschool. So, a few days later, she sent him to school with his hair in a man bun. But did the administrators ease up and let him in? The wording on the school district's policy not only banned long hair on boys, but also hair accessories and ponytails. This meant that the 4-year-old couldn't be admitted, and it was starting to affect him. Oates' mom told Today Parents, "My son was confused by the whole thing. He asked me, 'Mommy, why can't I go see my teacher? Mommy, why can't I see my friends?' So we even went inside the school to speak to the principal, but that just made it worse." Of course, she still had to put up a fight, even if she was paralyzed with anger. Her son was very observant. What happened at the school made him angry too, which in turn made her angry. But she wasn't about to give in. Instead, she decided to fight the system. Oates' mother launched an online petition to get the ACLU involved. Her argument was simple. The short hair rule isn't enforced with girls, so to force boys to adhere to this rule was gender discrimination. But did the community listen? The petition, which closed with 16,494 signatures, led to several individuals contacting the school board superintendent. But not everyone was as supportive as Jabez's mother would have wanted. "I've been told, and it makes me so angry, "We have been told to jump off a cliff," Oates told Today parents. "I've been told that me and my son have a target on his back and we're going to be ostracized, and most of the hatred has come from adults." And then the school board weighed in. The school district defended their policy in a statement to NBC News, which read, "There are procedures in place for addressing concerns over policy if it is Ms. Oates' desire to have her son educated in Barbers Hill ISD. But we would and should justifiably be criticized if our district lessened its expectations or long-standing policies simply to appease." So what did the Department of Justice think of the situation? According to the Baytown Sun, the battle between the Oates and Barber Hills Kindergarten Center came to an end when the United States Department of Justice investigated the case. The Department of Justice concluded that Barbers Hill had not violated any laws, but made suggestions to change the district's dress code regarding hair. But were the requests too extreme? One suggestion involved clarifying the code so that students could wear their long hair using rubber bands, but that the students would have to comply with the dress code if they let their hair down. The school board acquiesced and voted to approve this change in the dress code. They also approved a process for parents to file an exemption to the dress code. But Oates' mom would call this a hollow victory. She told Today parents, "Do I send him to a school where people are going to potentially emotionally torment him?" Jessica Oates had fought hard for her son's right to attend school without conforming to an outdated policy, but the battle had taken its toll. The stress of constant backlash and the anxiety it caused her child made her question if it was all worth it. Would forcing the school to change a rule truly change the attitudes of those enforcing it? She feared that even if her son were allowed back in, he would always be treated differently. Jabez, despite his young age, had already learned a harsh lesson about how the world works. He didn't understand why his hair was such a big deal, but he knew it made people treat him unfairly. He became hesitant about going to school, constantly asking his mother if the teachers would be mad at him again. Jessica worried that the rejection and confusion would affect his self-esteem in the long run. Determined to find a better solution, Jessica began exploring other schooling options for Jabez. She considered homeschooling or transferring him to a different district where hair length wasn't a concern. But even that came with its own set of challenges. What if they encountered the same narrow-minded attitudes elsewhere? What if changing schools only delayed the inevitable discrimination he might face again in the future? Meanwhile, the controversy surrounding the case had sparked a bigger discussion in the community and beyond. Parents, educators, and activists debated whether schools should have the authority to enforce rigid appearance rules, especially when those rules seemed to target specific genders. Some argued that discipline and structure were important in education, while others pointed out that personal expression should not be stifled by outdated traditions. As time went on, Jabez's story became part of a larger movement advocating for gender equality in school dress codes. More parents came forward, sharing similar experiences of their children being unfairly punished for their appearance. Some school districts across the country even started revising their policies, ensuring that dress codes and grooming standards were more inclusive.